My next guest has built and sold multiple SaaS companies. The first company was for the physical therapy industry, and the second company was for the real estate industry. In this episode, he breaks down what works and doesn't work for sales and marketing, how much he charges, and what his exit multiples were on both businesses. Please welcome Matt Wolach. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean. Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining me. So why don't you kick us off and tell us about your background?
Sure. So I was actually educated in hospitality management, basically customer service with hotels and restaurants. Spent some time doing that, which was a great experience for me, really learning how to deal with people, both people who were the customers yelling at me and also internal, my employees, what they would need and their desires and having to deal with all of that. So I had a great learning experience, but realized I don't like working those hours or for that pay. So I eventually got into sales, spent some more time doing that, and really got into SaaS software. And it was so much fun starting software companies and growing them and scaling them. And I've done it a few times. I'm fortunate enough to have a couple of exits. And now what I do is I help other people understand how they can start and grow their own software company and scale it to be really big so that they can get their dream exit and do what they want to do with their life.
Sweet. I can totally relate to your background on hospitality. Throughout college, I worked in the hotel industry. Downtown Milwaukee, I did hotel security, which is a kind of a catch-all, helpful segment of the company to help everything from every restaurant, the housekeeping to management, you name it. So yeah, I agree with you. Like, did I want to work every Friday and Saturday and some Sundays? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but good. You kind of, as you mentioned there, you get a lot of hard time. I wouldn't say tough times with customers, but those moments when they're really they're demanding, they want everything now, and they're going to call you names or push you around a little bit. And guess what? You got to take it.
So true. The beautiful thing is I still use that experience, what I learned from all those interactions now. So even though that was quite a while ago in my life, it was very influential and made me the person I am today. So I feel confident and able to handle anytime somebody gets a bit upset.
Yeah, right on. All right. Well, let's dive into your first SaaS venture. What was the name of the company and what did it do?
It's called WebPT. Basically, it was an electronic medical record for physical therapists, and eventually got into occupational therapy, speech therapy, that sort of stuff. And so we started that back in the mid 2000s, and the early days were rough. It was a struggle to try and figure things out. So we kind of had to learn on the fly of how to grow it, how to scale, how to get people to look at us, how to get those people to actually sign up. There's a lot of learning in those early days, that's for sure.
I imagine. So it sounds like this was a play for small and mid-sized businesses.
Absolutely. SMB play initially. We eventually got an enterprise, but SMB for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. And price point, what did you charge for that?
Average yearly was 5,000-ish, 6,000, somewhere in there for
customer.
Most of them.
Nice. Okay. Could you drill into a little more to help me better understand what problem did you solve for these physical therapists?
So it's an electronic medical record. So they have a requirement to document their visit. So if you were to go visit a physical therapist, they had to say, okay, Sean had his shoulder injury. He talked about this. He did this. We worked on this. We did that. These are the recommendations I have. They have to document all that. And what was happening was they were all doing it manually on paper. Like you see the doctor with their clipboard and all that stuff. And it's really time consuming. And then they would lose those notes or they wouldn't be able to read it. As we know, doctors don't have great handwriting. And so there was a lot of issues with that, not to mention they would do that, and then they'd have to schedule, and then the whole billing side of billing the appointment were all done in different systems. And we wanted to kind of unify that, sync that up, and make the process really smooth and easy and really modernize it. And when we started, about 80% of the industry wasn't doing anything. They were all manual. And so our goal was to get that industry up to date, and it worked pretty well. We got to be number one within 3 years.
Wow. Impressive. Dive into a little bit what worked for marketing and sales, or maybe you could start it this way. What didn't work, something you tried, and then transition to what did work?
Yeah, I think what didn't work initially, outbound stuff, we were not good at, and it did, for some reason, we couldn't figure that out. What did work was really networking, creating partnerships. That was fantastic for us. We had some great partnerships with both other software companies as well as other influential leaders within the industry. They realized that our product was going to be really helpful, so they started to recommend us more and more and more.
Right.
And we also were very good in terms of going to meetings and being at a conference or a trade show and meeting people and learning from them of what they were struggling with and what they hated. And we would take those learnings and make the product better. We would also make sure that our marketing matched up with what they were saying, make sure our sales process matched up with what they were saying. So we had really great success at events with partnerships. Those things really carried us forward. Not to mention, from the very beginning, we really pushed our SEO, and we made sure our website was SEO happy. We made sure that everything we did was SEO happy. We started to create content. We started to get content writers on staff, so we would continually create valuable content so that anytime anybody needed anything, they would come to us first, even if it wasn't necessarily for our product. And we had people say, hey, you're just kind of our single source of truth. We go to you whenever we need anything. And every now and then they're going to need our system, our tool.
So with the SMB play, there's what I look at, and you would maybe put it into similar categories. I look at really three main categories. You've got B2C SaaS, which kind of sits it in its own world. You want that low touch. Then in that middle category is SMB play, which your price point, I'm looking at about a little over $400 a month. It sounds like per customer, getting to that 5,000 a year. And then the larger play is the enterprise. And each of those has the marketing strategies, the sales strategies all over the board. So it sounds like your networking really worked. With the SMB play, can you talk to us about the sales cycle? Were you doing phone calls? Zoom? Back then it was like maybe GoToMeeting or WebEx, but it
literally was GoToMeeting. You're right.
Yeah. Were you using that to sell, or what were you using to sell this platform in the mid 2000s?
Yeah, you're exactly right. GoToMeeting was our primary way of doing it. We had customers and clients all over the country and the continent, and essentially we were the whole push was just get them onto the call, get them into a demo. We did not have a trial. Our system, we felt, was a little too tough for people to just go in and start trying it without a real training process and onboarding and all of that. So we pushed them to demo. That was the first touch point. And we were able to generate a bunch of leads. We eventually got very good at inbound, and we were converting those leads into demos, and then we got very good at demoing. But that getting very good at demoing, I just kind of just basically yada-yada'd over about 3 or 4 years of real struggle trying to figure out how to make that process really smooth. But that was some fun times.
So let's get into the numbers a little bit, if you're willing to share. What did your revenues finally get to before you sold?
I can't share that. That's still hidden. It was a private sale.
Okay, got it. And then can you share, though, what was the multiple of the SaaS? Was it on EBITDA or revenue?
It was on revenues.
Well, revenue's nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Top line.
It was 8 to 10, if I can remember.
8 to 10x.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yes, that's really solid. Okay. And were you actively seeking to be sold, or did somebody approach you?
Yeah, well, we first had VC come to us. So VC, at one point we got to be, we were growing extremely fast. We were Inc. 500. We were Inc. 5000, I think, for 5 or 6 straight years. We were growing at insane pace. So we had people coming to us. We didn't really have to go out and seek it. And when we were ready, we realized, okay, let's do this. So we did the double dip model, where basically you sell most of the company, 51%, and the founders take out a nice little bit, and then you work with that VC to grow it for 3 to 5 years and sell again. And that's essentially what we did. Gotcha.
Can you break down that timeline for us, like total duration in business, and then the time from that first dip to the second dip?
It was about 10 to 11 years or so.
Wow.
And duration from first dip to second dip, I think it was 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the VCs came in, bought 49%. It sounds like
51.
They did buy 51. Yeah. Got it. So you guys were a minority share at that point.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. And then you finally sold after 10, 11 years or so.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Very cool journey. With that venture, we'll get to the second one here in a second. What is one big lesson learned with that first venture you can share?
The biggest lesson that I've learned that I now pass on to my clients is, if we had somebody just telling us, hey, here's the right way to market, here's the right way to sell, here's what you should be doing, it would have been so much faster. We grew really fast as it was. Once we kind of figured it out, we took off. But that figuring out phase, and that's what a lot of clients come to me for, is to try and figure out how they can jump those early struggle phases and just go right to success. And so that's what I do. I share, hey, here are the things that I had to learn. Here's the roadblocks I hit. Here's what was struggling. And here's how you can overcome all of that. So you don't have to make the same stupid mistakes I did.
Right, right. And it sounds like the partnerships was one of the biggest plays to move the needle. Is that right? Building
It was great.
relationships with other companies in the same industry.
Yes, our partnerships were fantastic. And we got some of the partnerships to be tight enough that we were literally selling their product. Our team was selling their product directly, and not even white labeling. It was like, okay, they just would talk about ours, then they talk about that one, and they kind of blend it together so that the buyer saw it as one solution, and it worked great.
Sure. I didn't ask this in the beginning here, but how did you find a need in this industry? It's kind of hidden. You don't think about this every day unless you're in the physical therapy space. How did you come up with this?
Yeah, my partner was a physical therapist, and she knew
Oh,
that it had to be. She was frustrated and struggling, and she needed it.
gotcha. There you go. Awesome. All right, that's venture one. Let's transition to venture two. What was the name and what did it do?
The second one was called Sinleo. So after that process and after that company, I'm like, okay, well, that was a lot of fun. Let's do it again. Start a new one, new market, new team, new product. But now I kept the same process. So Sinleo is a product that targets real estate management companies. So commercial real estate, also HOA management companies, those types of things. And it was a totally new thing for me, although I had some experience in previous career on HOA management. So it was kind of a nice shift to get a new market.
Nice. And was that more of a SMB play as well?
We actually had it was pretty much half and half SMB and enterprise. We had some pretty
Okay.
big. We were able to win, I think, two of the top three HOA management companies in the U.S. pretty quickly.
Wow. By quick, what is quick?
Within a year, within our first year of launching, we had those under contract. So, for a brand new company, fresh off the mat, I mean, it felt pretty sweet to be able to get some big players on board.
Nice. All right. Well, let's drill into marketing and sales. What didn't work and what did work?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about that one is it was kind of a two-way play, not necessarily a marketplace, but kind of. Essentially, what this system did was it was an RFP automation solution. And so, whenever, let's say, a commercial property manager needed a new parking lot for their building, then instead of calling up every asphalt company, they would come into our system and just write out, hey, here's the property, here's what we need. And it would say, okay, here's the questions you probably should be asking those asphalt companies. We kind of had different industries, different things to as templates, and they would just click go, and we would go out, and the system would basically bring in 4 or 5 different vendors to be bidders and say, hey, here's this person looking for this thing, this job. Do you want to bid? And they'd say yes. And they just answer those questions in our system and submit their bid. So it was really easy to be able to handle everything within the system. And some of our struggle then was, who do we go after first? Do we go after the property managers first? Do we go after the vendors first? Because we need both of them signed up on the application. It's kind of like a marketplace play. To be able to get a marketplace, you need both sides to be really strong quickly. And so we had a concerted effort to try and make sure we got enough from this side as well as this side, so everybody was happy.
Yeah, we've had a few marketplace guests on the show before, and it's tough. I mean, SaaS is tough in itself, but another level up, I'd say, bringing on 2 audiences on the same platform that's pretty difficult.
Absolutely.
And was this, I assume, was it the SaaS play for the real estate companies, and then the vendors would come on, like they could use it?
Yeah, so it was a SaaS play for the real estate companies because it was a tool that they were able to use to make their life a lot easier. It saved them so much time. It was so great for them. For the vendors, it was more of kind of a lead purchase type thing. So yes, they were using the tool, but it's like, hey, do you want to join? And in which case, anybody in the area who says they need a new parking lot, you get that lead right away. So instead of hoping they call you, instead of hoping that they see your ad, you'll just get it. So they loved it. So they would actually pay per lead.
Gotcha. Okay. And with this business, drilling into marketing and sales a little bit, what really worked with this? Were you doing paid ads? What were you doing? Were you doing outbound calls?
Outbound was this one. So this was
Okay.
it was a completely different shift. Now we went to more of an outbound play. We had SDRs, BDRs on board who were out
Yeah.
calling vendors, who were calling the property management companies. Relationships here helped as well. We were fortunate to be able to know some big players, and that kind of opened some doors for us. But we still needed to go through a proper sales process to make sure that they fully understood the problem that they're facing and why they need to solve that problem.
Right on. Real quick here, can you define the difference between the SDR and BDR, sales development rep, business development rep?
Yeah, I think they're fairly synonymous. I mean, a lot of
Okay.
people might look at them differently. Maybe they have slightly different roles. For me, it's just terminology. I call them basically the same. It's basically somebody who's purely focused on generating leads in an outbound movement.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. And sales cycle for that, was it similar process, like get a demo set up, get people onboarded? How did it work?
Yeah, so we had two different sales cycles because it was two different targets. But essentially, if you were a property management company, it was a demo. We'd walk you through it. We'd go through step by step of what your challenges were, and then how we can solve those problems. And let's get you signed up. And then the other side, working with the vendors, there was no demo. We didn't really need to show it to them. It was just like, hey, here's what we can provide. We can provide X amount of leads over the course of whatever. You don't even have. The beautiful part for them is they didn't really have to pay like a setup cost or anything. They just paid per lead as it came through.
That smart model, lower friction, get them in, and they can pay as they go. That's awesome. The price point on the real estate firms, what were you charging?
Oh, you're gonna make me remember this. It's been a few years now.
If you can't, ballpark it.
No, I mean I remember some of the medium-sized firms paying 10 to 20K a year,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Larger got bigger, of course.
Yeah. Of course, that's what you're getting in enterprise plays. Would you break into six figures per client, or would it stay in five figures?
It was probably 50, 60, 70, so not quite six figures.
Okay. Gotcha. And with those bigger dollar amounts, did you have a longer sales cycle?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it followed the same path of upmarket. It's going to take a little bit longer, more stakeholders, more things to go through.
Red tape. Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then selling this company, I assume the numbers here private as well, or you're willing to share?
Yeah, private. This one wasn't as big of a sale. It's still a really nice deal, an 8-figure deal. But yeah, that one was actually a quicker sale, and we didn't do the double dip. We just straight sold it.
Just straight sold it. Got it. And multiple on this one?
I figure this multiple, again, you're hitting me on these things. It's been years. About 5 to 6, I think.
Okay, not as high. Was it because maybe lower profit margins?
Maybe that, but just smaller revenues. I think as you get bigger on revenues, the multiplier goes up.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. And with this business, how long did you have it?
2 years.
2 years and out for 8 figures.
Yeah. When you know the process, that's the thing. I cut my teeth learning the process in the first company, and then we applied that same process. So I had made all the mistakes before. I didn't make the same mistakes. I didn't hit the same roadblocks.
That's awesome. 11 years first venture, 2 years second venture, 8-figure exit. Okay. Now we're talking. Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
With this second venture, you didn't have as long of a timeline to make mistakes, but can you share a mistake you made and any regrets, anything you wish you didn't do?
Oh, I think some of my hiring wasn't good. I mean, I think also if you think about hiring, especially if I narrow it down to hiring salespeople, I think salespeople hiring is very, very tough. They say the best way to find a great salesperson is hire 3 and fire 2. It's a very aggressive way to think about it, and something I don't necessarily believe in. I'd love to hire 3 and have all 3 work great. But it's kind of the idea that it's really hard to tell who's a good salesperson from an outside perspective. When you're interviewing them, you go through it and you really fine tooth comb it. It's really, really tough. And I feel like I'm ahead of the curve in that I have about a 60% hit rate, whereas I think most people are at about 40 or 50%. But it's just difficult. And there were some of the people we brought in that just weren't good fits. But I mean, one mentor told me, hire slow, fire fast. Once you realize that it's not a good fit, let them go and let them go do something that they're better for. Yeah,
totally agree. Well, let's transition into your coaching business. Now, you're helping a lot of SaaS businesses, and I know one of the key things that jumped out at me, I can't recall if I saw it on your site or we're in the same podcast network together, but you really help businesses get to that 1 million MRR, monthly recurring revenue. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So, as I mentioned, those early days, if you're not quite sure what to do, I mean, there's so many different things to try and work out, from marketing to sales to your product market fit. Like, there's so
Mhm.
many things as a founder that we have to try and solve, that it's really tough. And without knowing what to do, it's a real struggle. And I went through that struggle. And so, after the last one, I'm like, okay, well, I hated that. And I'm sure there are people out there who also hate that. And one of the things that kind of moved me into this is that after having some success in a few different companies, I had people coming to me, some friends, like, "Hey, tell me, what did you do?" And I had people even like bring me in to talk with their sales team. Can you just talk with my team? And they're friends, so I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll just come over." Kind of shared some tidbits and such. So I realized I really liked that, and I would get notes from those people afterwards, a week or two after, like, "Hey, I used what you said. We closed a deal," and that would like give me energy. So I said, maybe I could just do that. Maybe there's people out there who need that. So it was literally 1 month before COVID. I'm
Mm.
like, let's do this. So I launched it, and COVID hit, but I didn't really see an impact on that. In fact, maybe it was a little bit of a boost because everybody was sitting at home and they realized, hey, how am I going to do this? I need some help. So they just would get on the Zoom with me, and we get after it. But um, I basically applied everything that I had learned, put it into an easy to understand format with processes and such, and said, hey, if you want to scale, if you want to get to what most founders want to get to, 1 million MRR, or initially 1 million
Mhm.
ARR, and if you want to be able to do that, I've got a path. I can show you exactly how to do it. And it's been a fun ride. I'm not sure if your audience is on video, but behind me there's flags. There's
Mhm.
35 of them. So we have 35 different countries of people who have come through the program. Over 250 different companies I've trained with and worked with to get to a really good place so that they can do some good things. And fortunately, about 23 of my clients have had an exit and seen some amazing success.
Nice. That says something right there. That's track record. You said program. Is this an accelerator you're running?
Yeah, you can equate it to an accelerator, essentially, a very marketing and sales focused accelerator. So we're not going to really talk about like, hey, here's how to build your product, here's how to update your
Right.
systems. It's really like, hey, if you want to market and get a ton of leads and sell a ton, I will show you exactly how to do it.
Gotcha. Now with this accelerator, sometimes accelerators will invest. Do you invest in these businesses and take some equity, or how is it structured?
Don't take any equity. It's just straight cash. You pay a monthly cost, and basically from that, you're going to get as much as I can give you to make sure that you get to where you got to get.
Gotcha. So you're kind of charging like a consulting firm would.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Okay. Let's take a quick commercial break. So, do you have an interest in investing in the market, but you're not sure where to start? In that case, I invite you to join Ticker for free. However, if you want to go a step further and really get up to speed, you can go to Ticker EDU. So, check this out. If you go to ticker.com and then click on courses, it'll take you right to Ticker EDU, which includes a few courses such as stock investing for beginners that can help you get up to speed in about a week or less. And then I also have How I Get the Most Out of Ticker, which shows you exactly how I use Ticker in every way, shape, or form, and even has a few real life stock reviews within. So if you want to start investing with confidence, I invite you to check out Ticker EDU. You don't have to give away the whole recipe here because we want people to call you, but is there like one or two really solid tips you can give? And before you answer that question, I assume you're more focused on B2B since your background is all B2B.
It is all B2B. That we don't accept any B2C, actually.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I just
yeah,
wouldn't be able to help them.
right on. All right. So yeah, one or two really hot tips you can help our B2B SaaS founders.
Yeah, for sure. So in B2B, most of the time with B2B, depending on your price point, of course, you're going to need to talk to your buyers, especially as you move up market. You're going to have some conversations in B2B SaaS. We call that a demo typically, where you're demonstrating the product. Now, the problem is there are things that work in a demo and things that don't work, but nobody tells you this stuff. There's no school or college to be able to train you on how to do this. And so these are some of the things that I failed at miserably in my early days of selling software that I had to learn the hard way. It sometimes took me years to learn some of these lessons. And so what I want to do is just make it easy. And what I've done is come up with a process that people can follow that just a step by step. So you can follow your demo and make it follow that exact same model. And you start seeing repeatable, scalable deals coming in. Now, the process we call it's called the perfect deal process, and deal, DEAL, is an acronym. And that makes it really easy to follow. So the D is for discovery. We need to learn from our buyers exactly what's going on. What's your problems? What are you facing? What are your goals? What are you trying to get to? All that fun stuff. And so there's a process of how we do that, what to do, and we can get really fine-tooth comb on how to do this at an expert level. But discovery is the D. We need to do that so we understand them. Then E is educate. We need to educate our buyers. This is something that a lot of sellers forget. If we're going to be consultative, if we're going to be their advisor, then we also have to educate them on something maybe that's going on in the industry that they're not aware of. I mean, I think something that we forget as sellers is we're talking to this same person every day. Ideally, if you've nailed your ideal customer profile, you're talking to basically a person in that role at different companies every day, which means you have a feel for the entire industry of what's happening. Whereas somebody within their own company, they're kind of just focused on their own thing. They don't really know what's happening out there so much. So we can educate them and kind of help them like, hey, these are some of the trends. This is what's happening. This is a shift that's going on. And sometimes they realize we're behind. We're not making that shift. If we're not making that shift, what's going to happen? We're in trouble. And it starts to get them realizing we need to take action. We need to do something. So we discover, we educate, and then the A is associate. We need to associate our tool, our solution, to their problems. This is why discovery is so key. Once we unearth those challenges that they have, we need to make sure we connect the dots to show that our tool, our solution, will solve those problems. And so sometimes people have just a straight script. They walk through their demo like step by step. Don't do that, because if you do that, then you're going to cover stuff that this person doesn't care about. And as soon as you do that, they're going to get bored. They're going to look away. And when you do get something in your script that they like, it doesn't matter because they've already lost interest. They're already checked out. So focus purely on what they care about, and you're going to get a lot more deals done. And the last one, the L, that's lead. We need to lead. We need to take charge. We need to be the ones in control during the entire sales process. Something that really cripples sellers is they think, well, I'll just do whatever the customer thinks is right. Well, the problem is that customer has no idea what is right. They don't know how to buy your product. They don't know how to learn if it's something that's going to fit for them. They've been through your sales process one time, whereas you've been through it dozens or hundreds of times. You should have a good idea of what needs to happen for this person to understand if this is a fit for them or not. So take control, be the advisor, and walk them right to the close. And so DEAL, people who have followed that have seen insane results. One of my clients, Paul in the UK, he went from a 26% close rate to 87% close rate. Another one of my clients, Brian, he went from 11% to 42%. Camille in France, he went from 5% to 60% close rate just following this process.
I've heard a lot of people talk about B2B sales, and it's you're right, it's a lot of calls, and the better you can get at setting up more calls, but then sure, you can book them, but can you close them? And this framework I have not heard before by anybody selling B2B SaaS. This is good.
Thank you. Yeah, you're exactly right. I would actually have people coming to me saying exactly that. They're like, hey, we've been able to generate some leads, but now our close rate is terrible. And we got these leads, we spent all this money on them, and it feels like we're wasting the money. We wasted this effort to generate these leads because they're just sitting there dead. And it's so frustrating. It's really, really scary.
Yeah, because if you're going day by day, week by week, and you do that over months, and your close ratio is like you mentioned, that one guy went from 5% to 60. Like if you're at 5%, like that's you getting up to the home plate and swinging and missing over and over and over. Like how demoralizing.
It's exactly that. It's demoralizing, not only for you as the leader, but if you have a sales team, they start to wonder, am I even good, or should I leave if this product isn't good and I can't sell it? And so you see turnover. What we look at, we see about 20% is the minimum. If you can't close at least 20%, your company is not going to make it. There's going to be real struggle. It's going to be really tough. So we want to get 20%, but that's still minimum. Ideal, if you want to be one of those scaling SaaS companies to get those big exits, you need 33% to start getting that good growth going forward. I have clients that are doing much more than that. One of my clients, Mike, went from 19% to 71% because of some of this foundational structure we put in.
Wow. Impressive. That's awesome. All right. Before we jump to the rapid fire round, can you give us one key takeaway for anybody looking to scale their B2B SaaS?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I had to learn, because as I was like, okay, I'm of the partnership trio, I'm the seller. I need to sell. And something that took me a generation to learn was don't sell, help. Be a
Mhm.
helper. Don't be a salesperson, be a helper person. And I that's kind of my mantra with my clients now is focus on what they need. Focus on what's important for them and what would make their business better. Now, if you've done your work right, the people you're talking to are within your ICP, which means they are the ones who are going to get the help. So most of the people where you focus on this, you're going to be the one that can help them. But of course, you also have to realize that every now and then there's going to be somebody that you can't help in the best way and you need to send them elsewhere. The good news is if you do that, then that person really trusts you because they think you're not there to just sell them. And I've gotten referrals from those people who I've declined very often because they realize, hey, this person just wants to help. Maybe there's somebody else that can be helped, even if it wasn't me. And so help, don't sell. That's one of my biggest takeaways.
Right. What is the old saying? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yep, that's Zig
Right.
Ziglar.
Yeah, right. That's the guy. But it's like that
Exactly.
right there, like that methodology that works. That works. Cool.
Absolutely.
All right, let's transition to the rapid fire round. This is the part of the episode where we get to find out who Matt really is, if you can.
Uh-oh, I'm scared.
I know. Here we go. You can try to answer each question in about 15 seconds or less. You ready?
Okay. Ready.
All right. What is your favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast is a podcast called Españolistas. I'm in the process of learning Spanish. I've gotten decent at it, but they just speak Spanish and try to help you understand how to learn Spanish. It's awesome.
That is so cool. Awesome. All right. What is a recent book you read and would recommend?
I don't know if it's recent, but I have read it, I guess, in the last few years. And actually, that was I did it originally years and years ago, but it's called The Challenger Sale. And it teaches you how to do sales a little bit differently than you might think. And I actually give it to all my clients and they absolutely love it. But it's brilliant. It kind of changes the game in sales.
All right. The movie question. What is your favorite movie?
Favorite movie is Ocean's 11. I cannot get enough of it. I'm one of those people who doesn't watch a movie over and over. My wife and kids, they love watching movies over and over. I only see it once and I'm good. This one I can watch over and over. And that tells me it's my favorite.
It's a brilliant, brilliant film. Those first three, I love, but that first one is something special. I'll
Amazing.
give you that.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. A few more serious questions here. What is the worst advice you ever received?
The worst advice I ever received may not be the worst for certain people, but for me going into sales, it was. And it was the customer is always right. And they're not. And I learned that pretty quickly that often they're not right. And actually, in sales, we need to trash that saying because it makes us do things that we shouldn't be doing that aren't helping that customer. If we think that they're right and they say, I need to do this, and you just do it, even though you don't think it's the right thing, you're not helping them. We need to help them. We are the expert. We are the ones that they're coming to for that expertise. So the customer's not always right. Tell them what's wrong and what they need to fix.
All right. Flip that equation. What's the best advice you ever received?
Best advice I ever received is something that actually I saw maybe a year or two ago is the only people who will know that you worked extra hard and stayed late are your kids. And so that really kind of hit me. And I said, I want to make sure that I'm there for them and I spend time with them.
Yeah, I love that. Good call. All right. And the last question here, if you could go back in time to give your younger self advice, what age would you visit? And what would you say?
I would probably visit my college self just as I was ready to get out. I'd say, hey, take more risks. In the early days, you don't have to be conservative and just play the whatever game. Take some risks, see what can happen. And it's something that I've learned in later days. But with my time horizon, that's not as available. But fortunately, I've been able to get successful in some of those risks, like we talked about when we started that first company. My wife was pregnant with our first kid, and I didn't earn any money from that company for a year. So it was quite the risk, but I'm glad it happened. I just wish that maybe a little bit younger, I would have been able to take some of those risks.
Sure, sure. Good call. Great advice. All right. And where can the audience reach you?
I'm great on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time there, so you can reach me there, Matt Wolach, Wolach. But you can also go to mattwolach.com, where I have a lot of tips and tricks. I even have some giveaways where you can download like a scorecard to keep track of all your stats, and it has all kinds of charts to show you if you're doing well or not.
Awesome. I'm on it right after this
Love it.
episode. Cool.
Love it,
All right.
Sean.
All right, Matt. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you.
Take